First of all, before we start, this video contains massive spoilers for Indigo Park. If you haven't yet, be sure to check out my playthrough of the game before continuing on with this video. I'll go ahead and put a card up now, and the link will also be in the description. With that out of the way, on with the video. So as you all may have seen, Indigo Park has taken the mascot horror genre by storm recently, and with the game only containing one chapter of the story so far, it has led to a lot of online discourse and theories regarding various aspects of the game's story and characters. The game has no shortage of minor lore details hidden around, many of which are still up for interpretation. I, along with many others, have taken notice of these details and have thought up some possible explanations for them, and brainstormed a possible backstory for why the park suddenly closed. I'm going to go ahead and assume that since my spoiler warning hasn't scared you away yet, that you already played the game or watched me or someone else play through it, and are familiar with the game's setting and characters. With that, I'll waste no time. Starting out, we know that the park closed down suddenly 8 years ago because of some currently unknown event, and that there is no official reason given to the media. This is extremely shady, especially for a beloved theme park which is supposed to be a place of joy and happiness. The first really weird thing that I noticed in my initial off-camera playthrough is that the player is being stalked by Molly, as we briefly see her peeking out at us in some areas of the game, but running away just as quickly as we saw her. Then, as we go after the key to the padlock at Jetstream Junction, we get some glimpses at Lloyd, as he is initially lying on the stage but gets up and runs backstage upon noticing the player's presence. We then have a few run-ins with him backstage, as he makes 2 attempts to attack us, but is ultimately repelled by the high-pitched noise created by your critter cuff. At first I had assumed that the mascots are all animatronics gone rogue, not unlike Five Nights at Freddy's, but after the chase sequence with Molly, that assumption fell flat on its face. When Molly gets decapitated by the door closing on her, we see blood and flesh, not robotic parts. That led me to think that maybe this was a deranged person in a costume, but thinking about it more, I don't believe that to be the case either. These mascots, at least Molly and Lloyd, and maybe Finley, who we don't see much of in this chapter, seem to be living, organic beings. With that, the hints that we see in the arcade cabinet at Jetstream Junction start to make more sense. In the minigame, we see that Molly's plane was crashed by a previously unknown character going by Salem the Skunk. We see that Salem is a villain character in the Indigo universe, and is a troublemaker who uses potions and traps to get their way. Salem uses a potion on Molly and turns her evil, who we now enter a boss fight with. I think that this detail is a massive clue as to what happened to shut the park down. Also, in the minigame, there is a hidden area where we can see Molly trapped in a cage. With this new info from the minigame, I had also noticed that when the player dies to Molly in the chase sequence, the death screen informs us that Molly can repeat words and phrases that she's heard. During the chase, we hear Molly repeat such phrases as,
"Stay in your seat! I want to play with the birdie! Don't touch that thing, son! Get up, you stupid freak! Get back in your cage, bird!"
This leads me to believe that again, the mascots are real living beings created by some sort of strange science who were mistreated and abused by staff and park guests. With this, I asked myself, if the mascots are actually alive, then who was feeding and caring for them? They couldn't have survived 8 years without any sustenance. This leads me to Salem. Is it possible that Salem has a living form too? I'm going to assume here that the mascots are of human-level intelligence in order to properly interact with park guests, and that includes Salem as well. Putting 2 and 2 together, I am inclined to believe that Salem, acting in character, may have done something to turn Molly and Lloyd against the park staff somehow. The mistreatment of them is further backed up by an audio recording revealed by Rambley upon showing him an old Rambley costume head.
Whoa, where'd you find that? I've never seen anyone wearing one. Pretty snazzy. Ooh, looks like there's an audio recording tagged with costume in my database I've never noticed before. Let's listen!
Hey Jackson, you hear about the new mascots?
Yeah, think it'll put us out of a job?
I think so. Old sport. And right after we got this damn raccoon costume.
Man, screw this place. I said we get our asses out of here and go straight to Vegas.
Aw, come on! They didn't even document the Indigo invitation celebratory ID for the costume. I was really looking forward to that. What a useless recording. Deleted.
In this recording, it's fairly obvious that park staff that had previously worn mascot costumes are angry about, quote-unquote, the new mascots, end quote, taking their jobs. I'm going to logically assume that park staff remained angry about this, and possibly took out their anger on the living mascots with mistreatment and abuse. Going back to Salem, I'm starting to believe that Salem is responsible for turning the living mascots against park staff and the guests. Did someone or multiple people get attacked by the living mascots? This theory is backed up by the fact that there seems to be some blood on both Lloyd's and Molly's bodies. This still doesn't explain why they are still roaming the park 8 years later, though. If we go back to the very beginning of the game, we see that the gear that we needed to repair the generator isn't initially sitting there on that cardboard box. It's actually in a small hole in the roof just above, sitting near the edge, and it falls into the room after Rambley explains that the generator needs repair. Making another logical assumption, that gear looks to be a heavy chunk of metal and wouldn't be moved by a gust of wind. Is it possible that Salem was on the roof and knocked down the gear for us? With that thought in my head, why would Salem want us to get into the park? Did they want us to meet our demise there? This is also backed up by the tunnel area right before the train ride. It caved in behind us. Rambley couldn't have done that. Again, I'm thinking that Salem trapped us in the park so that we can be easy pickings for one of the other living mascots. Now, with that info, we get to Rambley. He brings questions as well. However, I will start out with saying that I do not believe he is evil. He really has no reason to be, as he simply wants us to have a good time at the park, as that's ultimately his job, and it's implied in the end credits that he relies on positive feedback from guests in order to continue existing and would likely be deactivated if he wasn't good at his job. Also, I'd like to mention that Rambley saved our life during the Molly chase sequence. Initially, he sees us running towards a staff-only room, to which he immediately makes a staff in his database, letting us into the staff area, and shutting the door on Molly behind us. This, to me, proves his sentience and protagonist status. He seems to truly care about park guests and the park itself. However, I do think Rambley is hiding something. Even though I absolutely love the little goober, and I don't want anything to happen to him, there's one last thing I want to ask. What is down the hallway that he doesn't let us into after he makes a staff? He says that area is for higher-ups only, and changes to a very serious demeanor, instructing us not to go there. Is there something back there that he doesn't want us to see yet? Could evidence of the mistreatment/abuse of the living mascots exist back there? Why didn't he acknowledge the gruesome demise of Molly after he shut the door on her? I'm thinking that he doesn't want us to see something horrifying, because that would ruin your experience at the park, which would go against his job. Still, though, I don't think he's evil for that, nor do I believe that he had anything to do with the park's closure. Another note that I should add, I'm going to logically assume that since the park had no power for 8 years, Rambley couldn't see anything inside through the security cameras, and only started realizing what happened after we had entered the park. Now, with all that out of the way, let's recap, shall we? Here's what I gathered. The mascots, aside from Rambley, are living organic beings that were mistreated and abused. Angry staff are likely responsible for such abuse. Salem likely had something to do with enabling the other mascots to revolt and attack people. Either Lloyd or Molly attacked someone during normal park operating hours, forcing evacuation, shutdown, and cover-up. Salem is likely still at the park, hiding in the shadows, feeding and taking care of the other mascots. Salem likely knows that we are here, and intentionally let us in and trapped us there, to be another unfortunate victim. Rambley, probably fearing deactivation if he can't make guests happy, is doing absolutely everything he can to make sure that his first visitor in 8 years is happy. So there's my theory, everyone. Do you all have any thoughts as well? Please let me know in the comments section down below. I'd love to hear some other input. However, please note that I did leave out some other minor details for the sake of simplicity and not dragging on forever. With that, though, I kindly ask for y'all to like and subscribe, and don't forget to click the bell to stay notified the next time I post a video. Thank y'all for watching and listening to me ramble. See y'all later.